Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Just Reading podcast. So, today we're going to talk about the book Praise by Sarah Kate. Now, this book has been on my shelf for a while. It was a recommendation that I saw floating all around Bookstagram and BookTube. So, of course, I picked it up first chance I got, but I didn't read it right away. I put it down and I was just waiting for the mood to strike, right? So, it's supposed to be an age gap. Well, it is. It's an age gap, forbidden romance, taboo. It's my ex-boyfriend's dad romance. Um, Now, caveat, personal preference here. Age gap is not my favorite trope because it could be very tricky. This one was a bit hard to get into. The age gap is a full 20 years. But the good thing, if we want to call this a good thing, there's always positives, right? The female character was at least not in her teens. She was not in school. She was 21, a college graduate. So a little bit more mature, I suppose, than an 18-year-old. And the heroine, the ex-boyfriend's dad, was 40. So that was interesting. But I started reading it and I very nearly DNF'd. It's a slow burn, also, by the way, which is not bad. I like a good slow burn. So that wasn't the reason, but it was really hard to connect with the female character, Charlotte or Charlie. It was really hard to connect with her at some points. So I did not read this book all the way through. I started and I stopped. I started and I stopped. And then at one point, I just put down and it was just sitting there for a few weeks before I picked it up again. I read other things in between just to break it up. It's not a hard read. It was just me connecting with her, and it's dual point of views, so that's always a positive. I love to hear the character's point of view, both the hero and the heroine. That's always fun. um, the male character, Emerson, um, the love interest, he was fine. Okay, so I almost DNF'd, but I did not DNF. I'm glad I didn't. I am not quick to DNF any book, I have to say. And maybe that's a flaw of mine, but I feel like the authors put so much time and energy, I think, I would hope, into their work. And they want to put their work out there. And if I decide to give it a shot, I want to give it an actual shot. So it's rare when I DNF a book. I have done, but it has to be very, very bad, very bad, to the point where I just cannot. Even if I put it down and take breaks from it and I come back to it and it's still harrowing, then I'll just be done. But at least I know I've given it a shot. I want to see what the author is trying to say. I want to give it a fair shot. So I did not DNF. I am glad I did not DNF. Because it ended up, it was satisfying, um, to an extent, and I'm going to explain. All right, so these are some questions that we talk about. What did we like about the book, right? So what did I like? I liked how the author eased us, the reader, into the BDSM trope. I'm not very familiar with it. I've read it on and off with different novels, different books, a spattering here or there. If I usually gravitate more towards fantasy romance, even some sci-fi, with a romantic element. It doesn't always have to be supremely spicy. A little bit of spice is fine. No spice can also work as long as it's a really good, engaging story. But I love reading about other worlds, whether it's something somewhere off in space on another planet, or an alternate timeline, let's say, or even a fantasy kingdom, I find it fascinating. So I very rarely also read contemporary romances, but I will read them. I don't hate them. I don't always gravitate towards them, but I've got quite a few of my shelf. My only must for my authors and my books is to tell a good story. That's it. Once you tell a good story and I can dive into it and I can resonate with the characters and the world and just what you're trying to say, then I'm happy. Um, so I did like how it was almost as if, as the character was learning about this BDSM world, we were learning about it as well. So the title is Praise, and it has elements of something called Praise Kink, which I did not know was a thing. So that was interesting. So a part of it is that um, it gives you satisfaction, like sexual satisfaction, to be praised. And so the heroine, Charlie, she's discovering that about herself as she's building this relationship with Emerson. So this book has a few interesting tropes in it. It's a series, the Salacious Club series, and Emerson owns a club, a sex club. And he and his son, Charlie's ex boyfriend, are on the outs because his son doesn't agree with how his dad makes a living. So Charlie, right? Her name's Charlie. Charlie broke up with his son, and she ends up going to his office to collect um, a check for half of her down payment. I'm trying to remember half of the down payment that she put on the apartment that they shared together, because the son, Bo, he doesn't speak to his dad, and he refused to go to his dad for that money. And so he engages Charlie and he says, if you want it, go get it. And Charlie needs the money. She's in dire straits. She's 21, a fresh college grad. She doesn't really have a job. So she goes to the dad's office, and there's a miscommunication. So the dad thinks that she's there to participate in his dom sub role playing activities. Very quickly, they realize that that's not the case, but he's intrigued by her, and he offers her a job as his secretary, just his secretary. It starts off very innocent because Emerson is powerful. He's older, but he doesn't use that to coerce Charlie, which is also another positive. And as they are working together, there's an attraction. And so the taboo element comes in. So she's attracted to him, he's attracted to her, and they very much so try to fight it. In fact, Emerson tries more so than Charlie. She's very aware of what his business is early on, and she's curious. So she starts to do her research, she starts to ask questions, and her intrigue and curiosity intrigues Emerson. And little by little, he starts to get the feels for Charlie. But he understands in his mind that this might make his relationship with his son even more strained. And so he very much tries to push her away every chance he gets, every chance he gets. So that's where the taboo kind of element comes in as well. Another question we had was, how do we feel about the way that the author handled the age gap trope? Again, a tricky thing for me personally. It's 20 whole years. So the age gap trope's not my favorite, which I've already stated. It can be tricky, especially when the heroine is in like their teen years. I've read some books like that. Usually mafia romances seem to have that trope a lot. Not a lot. I have not read a lot of books where because usually when I find out that that's the heroine might be like 18 or 19 or something, it kind of icks me out. And so I might not really even reach for that book to start reading it. This heroine is 21, so I think that made it a little bit more palatable for me. Um, the author dealt with it in a very interesting way. She really made Charlie act her age, 21. Like there were some parts in the book as I was reading where I got so frustrated with Charlie because she did everything that you would expect a 21-year-old to do when she's faced with this kind of man, this kind of relationship. And in a sense, after a while, she even, in my point of view, starts to lose herself to her worship of Emerson. Emerson never coerces her. He never puts himself on a pedestal for her. He actually is very good about building her up and trying to make her see that she is a beautiful, engaging, fun young woman. But she has a lot of trauma from her father leaving their family, and how her father engaged with her, her sibling, and their mom. And so a part of me, as I was reading the book, I was like, does she have daddy issues? And she might very well, because she refers to Emerson at one point as perfect. There are no perfect people. And I feel like it's a part of hero worship. And so it was hard sometimes because her dialogue, her internal dialogue, was very much so what you would think a 21-year-old would sound like and say when they're like in this kind of a relationship. An older man, an established man. He's confident, he's handsome, he's virile, and she's got stars in her eyes, and he makes her feel good. His son, when they were together, he was not a very nice person as a boyfriend. Like, he talked down to her a lot. He really wrecked her self-confidence. And his dad, on the other hand, is not like that. Like, his dad is trying to give her that confidence back, and she's finding her confidence. So that was interesting to read. um Emerson's dominant personality versus Charlotte's submissive personality. That was interesting. So she's learning about the whole dom sub praise kink, and um there are some other things that they talk about in here. There's the aftercare, wax play. Yes, it's interesting. But again, I love how the author, as she was having the characters go through these motions and these scenes, she was explaining this to us, the reader, too. I thought that was actually really well done. And so Emerson is very dominant, and Charlie, not realizing it, is very submissive. And so they have a very interesting dynamic as she's discovering what she likes and what she doesn't like, and as he eases her into their world. And he asks for her consent. And which is that was a wonderful scene, because consent is everything. And consent gives you back your power as well. So even though she was submitting to him, she still had power in the relationship, because he gave her that power by saying, "Are you okay with what we're about to engage in?" and getting her okay. And that was actually beautiful to read. Charlie, as a character, which was hard for me, as I was saying, she's very unsure. She seemed a little dependent on Emerson, too much so for my taste. Her inexperience shows, but again, she's 21, and I think, as hard as that was for me because of the age gap trope, and that's a personal thing for me, I know many people like it, and that's great, because it'll be right up you guys' alley. It was a well-written book. I like how Sarah Kate didn't write Charlie as 21 acting like a 35-year-old woman who's had experience and has dated and knows who she is. Sarah did a good job writing Charlie as a naive, inexperienced 21-year-old. And as hard as that was for me to read and to relate to, I understood it. because it made me think of myself as a 21-year-old. And I'm sure others will think of it as well. And I haven't been 21 for a few years, guys. So you go out and you start dating, and you date around for a while, and you figure out who you are and what you like and who you like and where you stand in this whole landscape of dating and the dating world and your relationships. And Charlie didn't have that experience. She had Emerson's son and then Emerson. And so a lot of times she second guesses herself and she's so insecure. And, I feel like she perhaps that was the sticking point. It was just hard to listen to the constant insecurities play out in her head and anxieties play out in her head. It was hard for me to read, hard for me to connect to. However, again, that's exactly what we sound like when we're 21. When you're 21 and you're new to the world, and then all of a sudden this brilliant person walks in, and you get so lost in their personality and who they are and how they make you feel, and all of that plays out. And so for Charlie's character, a lot of times too, she says things like, what if he leaves me? What if he doesn't want me anymore? What if he, and again, it goes back to her father issues, her dad issues, because her father walked out on their family. And so a lot of times as she's saying that about Emerson, I'm thinking, well, daddy issues, ding, 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 because she's constantly afraid that I'm not good enough for him. He's going to leave me. What if he leaves me? And she's so bogged down with the anxiety of it all. There is a breakup because, of course, Bo comes into the picture. Emerson's son comes in. He is very spoiled and arrogant. And the whole premise of why he doesn't speak to his father because of the sex club seems a bit juvenile and trivial. But again, this is a 21-year-old young man, and so he's juvenile and he's trivial. So he's tanking his relationship with his dad simply because his dad has decided to open a club for adults, consenting adults, to explore their desires. And so, as a 21-year-old young man, he is acting like such a child. And so Bo was hard to take as well because he was so self-righteous, and he was just, it was really hard. There's reconciliation at the end. He gets out of his own way. He understands and accepts that his dad and Charlie love each other, and his dad is good for Charlie. Charlie is good for his dad. And it seems as if he's coming around to the idea of what his father does for business. And so there is reconciliation at the end. But before there's reconciliation, of course, there is that breakup. So Bo discovers that Charlie and his dad are together, and he's angry, and he is disappointed. And his father, because his dad really wants his son in his life. He's a parent, of course. He loves his kid. And he then makes Charlie feel like what they shared meant nothing to him because he's trying to make what is his name, Bo, comfortable. So Charlie is hurt and disappointed in Emerson for how he made her feel, so she walks away. And Emerson is then racked by guilt, and he wants both of them in his life. He loves Charlie, but he loves his kid too. And he at one point promises Bo that he won't see Charlie anymore because he just wants his son back. He wants a relationship with his son. But it's harder to walk away than he thought it was going to be. It was easier said than done. And when he realizes this, he then goes on to commiserate with Bo, and they finally come to terms with the fact that they're going to be together. So Charlie walks away, and when she walked away, it was honestly a brilliant moment for me. There is a scene where they come together at the club, And Emerson is begging for her to come back to him. And he does what he does. And she looks at him and she said, "It's not enough." And I felt such pride for Charlie as a character. And I was like, yes, because he wanted her to stay. And even Emerson, as a 40-year-old, he says that he wanted her to stay. He wanted her to just accept his apology and just forgive him and turn around. But when she walked away, even he felt a sense of pride that she realized she was worth more than what he was giving her. And I loved that because there comes a time in all of our lives, as we're dating and growing up, that we have to come to terms with our own value, and we can't put our value in other people. It doesn't matter how much we love them. And it's so easy when we're in relationships, because we want to please our partners, to lose ourselves in them, especially if they have a more dominant personality than we do. And the fact that she was able to just walk away, I was like, yes, because at the end of the day, he'll respect her more. He will respect her more because he'll realize that as much as it hurt her, she would walk away knowing that she deserves more than he was giving her. And that was a beautiful scene to watch. And so she leaves him, and he's proud of her too, which is awesome because he realized that, her confidence, she's gaining that confidence. She's not as scared as she was when they first came together. So Emerson helped her build that confidence, that relationship that they had. She found her confidence in it. Um, and now let's keep going. So we're close to the end, right? She walks away, and he finally realizes that, okay, I really have to do something in order to win her back. And I have to make sure that she understands that she's important to me. And I have to make sure that Bo understands that I'm not walking away from this woman because I've waited 20 years to find somebody who loves me and accepts me for who I am. And I found her. And I'm not going to just let her walk away. As much as I love my kid, we have to find a way to work through this. So they reconcile, and Emerson makes it known that she's important to him, and he lets Bo know. And Bo, it's a sweet scene when Bo actually lets her know, like, I get it. I get it. And as long as you're happy, then I'm happy for you. And you can see that even he himself is starting to mature, right? So we're getting closer to the end, and it was frustrating again, like the last couple pages in, because her inferiority complex comes to the forefront. Emerson is, and these spoiler alert, guys, I should have said that from the beginning, but not too many, I hope. So he's nervous because he wants to propose, but she doesn't know that. And his anxiety and nervousness triggers her insecurities. And there's one point where she's thinking, why is he so nervous? Is he going to leave me? What will I do without him? Oh, and I almost wanted to just rip, like rip my hair. I was like tugging at my strands, like, no, Charlotte, not again. Get over it. You're in a committed relationship. He's told you that he loves you. He's there for you. Why is the first thing you think of that he's going to leave you? And then I reminded myself, she's 21, and this is her most serious committed relationship. So they get over that, and the wrap up ends. They end up, he's proposed, she's accepted, and she has decided that I need him, but I don't need him, and he's a part of me, and I love him so much. And they come together, and it's a sweet moment. And I don't want to, there is a scene here, but I can't read it all the way through, right? Copyright issues. So, but she says something, like, paraphrasing here, that without him, she is a woman with half a heart, right? But then at the very end, it says it says that they found someone who adores and treasures them, and that it makes her heart glad. And yes, I'm paraphrasing, copyright issues. So I am not reading word for word what the author wrote. But if you guys are interested in this really great book, it was really a good read, even though it took me maybe a month and a half to finish it. But it was a really good read. But if you're interested, go ahead and pick it up. Sarah Kate did a good job. The characters were exactly who they were. But despite all of the flaws and the insecurities and the anxiety, they came together and they got their HEA. And isn't that why we all read romance? As much as we might dissect and gripe, and we read the romance for the HEA. We read the romance to see that imperfect people can find love and acceptance, no matter the age, no matter the hangups, no matter the kinks, possibly. There's somebody out there for everybody. So pick up Praise by Sarah Kate, Salacious Players Club, and see what you think. Base your own opinion off of it once you give it a good read. It was great chatting with you guys today. Stay tuned for our next episode and see what else we have on our book club list. And have a great day, guys. And just remember, just keep reading. Bye now.